there's an inherent nature of good that's a function of reality and life itself. Like if you have to decide between whether life is good or bad, whether it's good to live or good or bad to live, it's clearly good to live. And so I think any sort of structure that furthers survival is maybe a little bit too reductionist, but I think it's a good starting point to look at how not just an individual survives, but how a society survives as well.
So that might be a definition, or at least a concept of good that exists without having to have just the absence of evil, right?
Right. Because I mean, it's like, how do you define an evil lobster? How do you define an evil rat? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, per that definition, behavior that's basically that's counter to the survival of either the species or even the individual, right?
Right.
Potentially.
And this, for some reason, have you ever heard of the cordyceps fungi in ants, by the way?
Remind me. I think I've heard about it, but I don't remember.
It's a fungus that actually it takes over the ant's brain and kind of turns it into a zombie. But when the Last of Us was a video game built on that, kind of hypothesizing what would happen with humans, basically a zombie apocalypse kind of.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of the game, but I've never actually played it.
I'm going somewhere with it. So when the healthy ants in a colony notice, they can detect scent markers on an infected ant, an ant that has the cordyceps fungi, and they'll actually take that ant away from the colony and dispose of it far away.
Oh.
So they will actually sacrifice individuals that are sick, quote unquote, in order for the greater good. Because I understand that, yes, while that individual's life would have some utility to the colony, the fact that it is sick, they automatically know, even though they don't speak the way we speak, they still have a knowledge of the concept of, if we don't get rid of this guy or girl, maybe it's a girl ant, I don't know. Probably not, because they only have one queen, but anyways.
Yeah, whatever.
So I think when you look at nature, that you start to see that it gets very difficult to define what evil is, actually.
Yeah, and I like that you brought up the notion of sacrifice, because we had talked about that a little bit in the last episode as it related to sort of how you can use sacrifice as a way to better yourself and, overcome adversity and things like that, and train yourself, become more strong, powerful, all these different things. So do you think that notion of sacrifice, I'm guessing you're saying that is built into the sort of animal nature, or just nature in general, right?
It's built, yeah, exactly. It's built into the, and it gets into some really dicey topics when you think about nature, because nature is very cruel. But do we ascribe intentions like cruelty to nature necessarily, or do we think of it as being more sort of apathetic almost, or neutral in? Well, I don't want to steal your thunder, no pun intended, because I'm going to talk about the weather. But when you think about a tornado going through a town, destroying lives, we think of that as being bad,
right? Because
it's against what we really want and arguably what we need. But we don't think of it as evil per se, right?
So I brought up the question of what's evil versus what's wrong versus what's bad. So it seems like we do think of evil as different from bad, but is wrong a different concept? It seems like wrong and bad are pretty closely related.
Well, I think wrong is very specifically talking about an individual decision. You think about right decisions and wrong decisions.
Yeah.
Good decisions and bad decisions. I mean, when you really think about it, it's like, it's really hard to go from making a good decision to thinking about making an evil decision. You think about either making a good decision or a wrong decision or a bad decision.